So grateful for you all for being here today. My administration is taking a very bold step today, as we have done for these first few weeks in my tenure. But I am grateful that everyone is here today because this is an exciting announcement. I'm happy to be joined, of course, by two amazing teachers, South Shore teachers, Tiffany Childress Price and Jiminy Ofori. We are also joined by the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, Stacey Davis Gates, and the CEO of our Chicago Public Schools, Pedro Martinez. Today we are proud to announce that the Chicago Public Schools will be developing an expanded paid parental leave policy for employees that will go into effect the start of the 2023-2024 school year. With the creation of this policy, our teachers and school leaders can not only show up for their students, but for their own families during a very critical time in their lives. The city's existing paid parental leave policy ensures that all city employees have 12 weeks of paid parental leave. My administration is taking that policy one step further so that CPS educators can also receive the benefits of this historic and progressive policy. Currently, CPS entitles birthing parents to 6 to 8 weeks of short-term disability, while non-birthing parents receive 2 weeks of paid leave. The new CPS policy promises to closely align with the city's policy, giving 12 full weeks of paid leave to both birthing and non-birthing parents, and applies to employees whether they are growing their family through birth, adoption, or foster care. Additionally, surrogates will be eligible for up to 8 weeks of paid leave for recovery purposes under this benefit. This 12 weeks will be crucial to new parents who need the necessary time to bond with their newborn, their newly adopted, and fostered children. This policy is a huge win for CPS employees and parents for our entire city. Now, for one thing, this policy furthers our commitment to creating a Chicago that puts the needs of workers and families first. Young people looking into careers in education can be assured that CPS honors its employees' needs, and we aren't making them choose between a paycheck and starting a family. Furthermore, this policy will greatly improve mental and physical health outcomes for new mothers, parents, families, and newborns. This is important for all mothers, but particularly women of color who experience higher rates of adverse outcomes related to pregnancy. Study after study shows that a mom and baby do better when they're given the time to heal and grow together. This policy will also strengthen our economy. When CPS employees have adequate time and support to take care of themselves and their families, this will ultimately ensure that once they return from leave, they come back refreshed, energized, and ready to lead the next generation of young Chicagoans into success. This policy also ensures that birthing parents, particularly women, don't feel pressure or this need to quit their jobs to become a parent. An investment in our families is an investment in the vitality of all of our communities. I'm thrilled to begin this work and look forward to this parenting policy that the Board of Education will approve. I'm even more thrilled that we will get this done in partnership between the Chicago Public Schools and the Chicago Teachers Union. All of us working together, will continue to make our public school system stronger for teachers and students. I want to thank you all again, and now I would like to turn the microphone over to the CEO of Chicago Public Schools, Mr. Pedro Martinez. Pedro?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I want to commend you for your leadership and look forward to continuing to partner with you on this effort and other initiatives to strengthen our schools. I also want to acknowledge Stacey Davis Gates and her teams. They are valued partners in the work of our district, and I'm glad that we're able to come together on this priority for our valued staff and members. I want to also thank all of the other city and community leaders who have joined us today. I don't think there's a more appropriate time to begin working towards a new parental leave policy. We're coming off a very strong school year. We're immensely proud of the tireless dedication of our teachers and staff. I want to personally thank all of our school-based staff members and all the hard work they poured into our classrooms and schools to ensure that our students had everything that they needed to reach their full potential. I also want to thank our network and central office staff for working to support our schools as well. This policy is extremely important to me, not only as the CEO of CPS, but also as a parent. I have a 12- and 9-year-old children that are both CPS students. A child is the greatest blessing in life, and I want our employees to be able to take the time they need to welcome a new child into their lives. I always say this, my wife and I, we have wonderful pictures of our children when they were babies. We were not baby people. We were pretty miserable the whole time. This policy will also help ensure that they return to their schools and our district motivated to once again make countless positive impressions on our students. We will collaborate this summer to finalize this policy. We want to ensure that we have thought through all the ways this will affect our schools. Our goal is to provide each school with the support they need to ensure smooth and a successful school year and in every classroom. That is why we're not announcing the exact details today, but as the mayor said, it's going to be very closely aligned to the city's policy. It will be 12 weeks for birthing parents and non-birthing parents. We have established a joint parental leave working group with the Chicago Teachers Union that will be meeting throughout the summer to craft the best possible policy. We anticipate that we'll take the proposed policy to our Board of Education for consideration this summer. Our goal is to communicate this policy to our staff members before the 23-24 school year begins. I am very optimistic that this process will produce great results. I believe having the partnership with the CTU is just going to make us stronger. We held our first actually working meeting this week on Tuesday, and it went very well. We look forward to working during the summer to prepare to implement this policy for the new school year. And again, I want to thank our amazing partner, Stacey Davis-Gates, and she will now come to say a few words.
Oh, I get a change of translators. It's afternoon, so good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You know, I'm kind of stuck in the moment for a second because this is a transformative moment, not just for the young people who are in the Chicago Public Schools, but the entire city of Chicago, where we have partnership across the board. And I want to appreciate the resilience of a movement of people who made this possible, and to just say thank you to them. Parental leave is a big deal for someone like me. I'm a mother of 3. I am also a high school history teacher, and I remember the hardship that my family had to undergo in order to be a mom. We're at the most transformative time of my life. I was also begging my parents to help me pay bills. That should not be the life of a new family. That being said, I'm very happy that as a women's rights organization, of which the Chicago Teachers Union is, because nearly 80% of the members are women, this policy makes sense, and it should never be at a negotiating table. In fact, this should be the norm for every woman who works in any industry, any parent that works in any industry, to nurture their child, but to also have an opportunity to heal their bodies. Like Mayor Johnson said, black women suffer mortality rates that should not exist. A mortality rate that is not a statistic in my family. In fact, my niece was a victim of that. So this means a lot to me personally and to our union. Finally, we talk about recruiting and retaining quality educators. This is a step in the right direction for those of us who want to become educators, that you have a school district that is willing to see you as a whole person and is willing to support your personhood. So to say that I am almost speechless by this moment is an understatement, and to say that I am grateful for the leadership of Mayor Johnson and CEO Martinez is equally an understatement. I'm thankful for this moment. I am glad that we got here together, and our members, I appreciate them the most. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am one of those members, and it's an honor to be representing my colleagues today on the first day of summer. My name is Tiffany Childress Price. I am a 16-year veteran. I teach at South Shore International College Prep. While teaching is one of the great joys of my life, I have to say that being the mother of two amazing boys, Solomon and Elias, tops that. They just wrapped up 2nd and 4th grade, and I'm immensely grateful to all the teachers and staff who cared and nurtured them this year. Becoming a parent was the best thing that happened to my teaching practice. The way that I have seen other people's children has transformed. My empathy for struggling children and struggling families has now become a personal experience. So it's my conviction, my strongest conviction, that parenting and teaching cannot be in competition. I think about our value in Chicago Public Schools to care for the whole child. This value guides my everyday practice. Today I ask, what about caring for the whole teacher? Our former policies punish teachers for becoming parents. Last fall, I watched my colleague and good friend, a veteran of 15 years, and one of the most excellent science teachers, come back from giving birth with just 0.25 days of sick leave left in her bank. And I watched her struggle with the decision to work without pay in order to take her newborn to a wellness check. As a Black woman who had birthing complications myself, I know the question, how do I not die in childbirth? As we as Black women have disproportionately higher maternal mortality rates. We should not survive childbirth to ask, how will I now heal, feed, or nurse my baby? How can I have protected time for doctor's appointments for both myself and my child just because we're teachers? Both the UN Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women and the International Labor Organization recognize family leave as a human right, because this truly is an issue of human rights. For decades, we have been sharing our stories, asking to be heard. Our teaching corps is 80% women. So while this is a win for working women, it's really a win for families. This 12-week leave affirms our humanity. It affirms that becoming a parent does not disqualify us from teaching, counseling, and serving students of Chicago. Thank you, Mayor Johnson, for seeing us, for hearing us, and for affirming our humanity. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon. Hello.
My name is Jiminy Afori. I'm a teacher of 15 years in Chicago Public Schools, and I'm also at South Shore International College Prep. So I'm really not the type of person that you're going to find at a political event or doing public speaking like this. I'm not a particularly powerful speaker, but I am a mother, I'm a parent, and I'm a teacher, and you'd be hard-pressed to find someone anywhere that has not had a profound impact in their life from the presence or absence of a parent, a mother, or a teacher in their life. You can ask any therapist or friend. I'm pretty sure that could be confirmed. But this topic compelled me to step into a new role and to speak on behalf of all the moms and the parents out there. So my journey to motherhood was, like most people, very challenging. I had more miscarriages than I care to discuss, and the majority of those miscarriages occurred while I was working. Excuse me. My administrator at the time picked me up off the floor in the bathroom to support me through one of those. And supported me in a way that I will feel indebted to her forever. And, you know, I'm thankful that she was there at that moment, but sad for everyone else because I'm not the only one, is the reality of what we know about becoming a parent. Truthfully, when I was having my children, we didn't have maternity leave or parental leave. I had to do FMLA. I had to use all my sick days, similar to what Tiffany described. And God forbid my child ever got sick, I had to compete with what felt like the whole city to get doctor's appointments in times that wasn't in conflict with work. And I was so happy that my pregnancies were healthy that I did not even realize that my leave time was held against me when I came back to work. I ultimately left the field to take care of my children when I had my second child. It just became too complicated for us. Family leave is a human right, and it stabilizes societies. Healthy societies have healthy homes, and parental leave is the foundation for those healthy relationships at home. Like many educators, I tried to plan my pregnancies around summers off, but I quickly learned that that's just not the reality for most women. I also realized I'm not the only one impacted by this reality. As a mom, I wanted to speak to the experience of other mothers. And it wasn't until I became a mother myself that I was able to hear about other parent stories and how difficult the realities of becoming a parent actually was. From infertility, surrogacy, postpartum depression, adoptive parents, which is limited to 10 days, which is just criminal, IVF, to over 35, thank you so much, pregnancies. 6 weeks is just not enough time, no matter what path you had to take to become a parent. The expansion to 12 weeks of paid leave would have transformed my life. It would have enabled me to stay in the field. For me and my colleagues who are in similar situations, it would have given us better time to bond with our children and to be our best selves when we return to work. The additional burdens of navigating a healthcare system that is riddled with racial disparities is enough to worry about. If parents are able to fully connect and care for newborns, it diminishes sickness, it avoids disruptions to work schedules, and avoids mental health crises that so many young people are experiencing. I'm so glad this expansion is taking place. Thank you, Mayor Johnson, for taking the time to prioritize parental leave as one of your first topics of work. And I'm going to turn it back to you and dry off some of these tears. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jiminy. Thank you, Tiffany, for your bravery and your stories and your commitment to the people of Chicago, and of course, for your love for the people of Chicago and for your families. Again, thank you to our CEO, Pedro Martinez, and Stacey Davis Gates, the leader of the Chicago Teachers Union. And thank you all for being here today. Just in closing, you know, this is the soul of Chicago. Yes. Right? Caring for those who care for us. That is who we are. And, you know, Jiminy, what I will say, if I could, you are powerful in your voice and your delivery. I was in the delivery room when my children were born. And I'm just saying, for like 3 weeks, I was blinded by my wife's presence of how powerful she is. And if you have ever been in a birthing room at that time, God is a woman. I'll take questions. No religious questions.
We'll start with Becky.
So non-birth parents, that also include fathers?
Yes.
Just
No, I'm saying specifically males.
quick,
Yes.
a quick question, just to clarify, this is all CPS employees or only C2 contract covered employees? It's all CPS, okay. And then a question about this nationally. Many school districts, including other urban districts, do not offer this much paid leave. I believe this will make Chicago a leader or an outlier, and I'm just wondering what your reaction is to that, and also when you plan to appoint school board members.
Okay. Your question is, what does it feel like to be a leader nationally? As I've said repeatedly, that this is the greatest city in the world. And when we know the story of the labor movement and the role that the city of Chicago played in the labor movement across this globe, it's only appropriate that we do what Chicago always does, is that we lead and we win. As far as the school board is concerned, our deputy mayor of Education and whatever else she's the deputy of, Jen Johnson. We're going through a process now where we are reviewing those who are currently on the board and those who ultimately align with our vision. So we're going through an extensive process, and you'll be hearing more about that soon. Thank you. And I appreciate the on-topic questions. If we could for a little bit.
I have an off-topic, but
Yeah, can we hold off on the off-topic for a second?
Mariana,
It helps me
University of Chicago.
compartmentalize better,
Yeah.
that's all.
Mayor, maybe Pedro can answer in Spanish the same question, but it has to do with the lack of substitute teachers in CPS. How's the district going to deal with that?
Mr. Martinez?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So a couple of little context facts for you. Right now, less than 3% of our birthing parents right now are taking leave, and even though we pay for 6 weeks, the vast majority take the full 12 weeks. But again, they're using their sick days, as our teachers just said. And then about 1% of the non-birthing parents also take leave, and that varies from 4 to 10 weeks. So many of the coverage issues, we've already had to address many of them, so there'll be some added. It's the reason why we're creating a committee to look at just all kinds of solutions and looking at coverage overall. I am very proud of the fact that our substitutes today make more than ever before. I think that's a social justice issue. I've always felt substitutes never got paid enough and never were appreciated enough. And frankly, during the pandemic, I think we did the worst thing that we could, which is we didn't even give them any work or opportunities. And we're paying the price for it now. But I say kudos that this is what it takes, then I'm glad for that. We've created even new roles for substitutes where they have guaranteed work for the whole year at a higher rate. Ahorita, con este nuevo beneficio, yo sé que nuestros padres van a estar preocupados de cómo vamos a encontrar personas para los salones, ¿verdad? Porque más maestros y padres van a tomar tiempo para sus niños. Lo que estamos haciendo ahorita, lo importante primero es que ahorita cuando miramos a todo el distrito total, menos del 3% de nuestros empleados están tomando tiempo con sus niños y la mayoría toman 12 semanas. Damos 6 semanas gratis, pero pueden tomar otras 6 semanas si tienen días, y la mayoría toma los 12 semanas. Así que eso ya está ahorita, y eso existe. Y luego para los padres, que no son los padres que han tenido niños, pero los padres que también van a poner tiempo, ahorita 1% de nuestros empleados también toman ese tipo de tiempo, y de 4 a 12 semanas. Así que no esperamos que el problema que va a estar muy grande, pero al mismo tiempo estamos haciendo mucho para tener más personas para cubrir los salones. Y vamos a tener un comité que también va a mirarlo más cerca, pero ahorita estamos pagando más a las personas que están cubriendo en una manera temporal. Ahorita estamos pagando más, y para mí eso es justo, porque esos empleados trabajan también muy duro y en el pasado no los pagábamos bien y estamos pagando mejor ahorita.
Pedro, if you could stay there for a second, because my question is also for you. I know the details haven't been worked out yet exactly, but the board has been, and your staff have been very deliberate about considering this. So is there a ballpark estimate for what the financial impact will be, and where does the money come from for it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We have looked at it. I would tell you that the challenges that I see more are coverage overall, because we have had, especially with the pandemic, we've had several challenges, especially finding substitutes. So we've already increased significantly our funding for substitutes. We think this could add maybe another potentially $10 million to the budget. I will tell you, I think it's a worthwhile investment, because the reality is we lose teachers when they start having children. And that creates other challenges for us. And of course, they can't, this happens throughout the whole school year. And you can imagine what kind of challenge that creates for schools. I actually also am looking forward to the fact that I think we're going to be in a better position to recruit teachers. By having this benefit that's a leader, not only here in the state, but in the country, I think it's going to send a message to teachers. And I'm already very proud of the fact that we are a very attractive district. This is just going to move. So I think in the long run, I actually think it's going to benefit us. In the short term, we'll have some challenges, but it's things that we're already planning for.
Hi, for CEO Martinez as well. Mariah Wolfel, WBEZ.
when this policy was denied to CPS employees under Mayor Lightfoot, she said she encouraged CPS to implement the policy. You two both sent, a letter to CTU encouraging the union to negotiate. Will this have to be negotiated with the union, and if not, what has changed since then? I also have a question for the mayor.
Yes, so first of all, this has always been a priority for us. In fact, my first meeting with Mayor Johnson, he and I both spoke, this is a joint priority. This was never meant to be something, and Ms. Gates said it the best, this shouldn't be something that's negotiated. It really is more of a policy, how we treat for all of our employees. What we were doing was really just making sure we did the analysis and understood it, because context again, right? My first year was a very difficult year. It's when all of our children came back in person, and we had significant coverage issues. I mean, it was almost unattainable. It was very difficult for our staff. It was a little better this year, but we still had challenges. And so for us to, respond really quickly during the middle of the school year, it would not have been fair to our staff or to our school leaders who have to manage these issues. So we've taken the time, done the analysis. Again, I really appreciate the partnership that Ms. Gates and CTU has. Again, I think this is something we both have wanted together, but we want to do it in a responsible way. This is allowing us to do that.
Mayor, how about other sister agencies? Are you committed to taking similar steps right now for CHA, CTA, Parks employees?
It's important that we lead the way in the city of Chicago for how we treat workers. And so, as I've said repeatedly, bringing the people of Chicago together is top priority for my administration, and we're doing that. The fact that we have the Chicago Public Schools as well as the Chicago Teachers Union working together with my administration to be able to help bring something into fruition that really should have been done some time ago, that is indicative of my style of leadership, and I will continue that throughout my tenure.
I guess some of my questions have already been answered, but let me just ask this, Mayor. How should people look at this and review this decision to not negotiate this, but just to give this to CTU as how things are going to go? Next year there's going to be kind of negotiations for a new contract. Does this mean that CTU is going to get what they want?
I like your jacket, Craig. I like the lapel. It's very fancy. Thanks for getting dressed up for me today. This is not a gift to the CTU. This is a policy to the people of Chicago, for the people of Chicago. So if people are looking at this as a gift, then they're missing the incredible moment that's happening here.
No, I'm talking about when you have to negotiate a new contract. Is this?
Well, we're not talking about negotiating a contract today, though, Craig.
I know. Does this signal how your administration is going to deal with CTU when you have to deal and negotiate?
But this is apples and oranges. We're not negotiating today. We're talking about a policy that's going to make sure that we protect women primarily and women of color. No, and I'm not saying you're wrong to ask the question. What I'm saying, though, is that you're comparing a negotiation with a policy that's ultimately designed to save people's lives. So when you ask the question about how people should see it, I'm answering it. They should see it not as a negotiation. Do you understand how disruptive and problematic it would be if we are negotiating the context of whether someone lives or dies, or if they have services? That's not for negotiation.
Hi, Mayor. The Inspector General's most recent audit found that there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 police officers on the force who have been documented to have submitted false reports. How big a challenge does that present to you as you work to restore?
Can you do us a favor? I'm happy to answer that question, but I want to focus on the on-topic questions.
Oh,
right
I thought
now.
we were already off topic.
There are other people in here that I'm not sure if others had other questions.
No, we're still on topic.
We're still on topic. Can we stay on topic just for a second? Is it, you have it on? Can we do that? Is that okay? It just helps establish a little bit more decorum around here. That's all.
It's a question for Stacy. I'm wondering if you can give us a sense of the scale of how big a problem for retention that not having this policy in place previously had on the workforce, and how often you were hearing from union members about what a big problem the district's current leave policy was.
Well, I think you could put that into a couple of buckets. One is the bucket of being forced into a corner and making a choice whether or not I want to be a working mother or a mother. right? Can I afford to be a working mother? It becomes a question. So there's that bucket, and I think that that's a significant bucket, especially right now, as it relates to the lack of. The conversation revolving the number of guest teachers that are available means that there is already an issue. And attracting qualified workers into the profession will require our district, our industry, to adopt changes that reflect the needs of families. We can't say that we love and want to invest in our children and we're not investing in their parents at the same time. Those two things go hand in hand. My children benefit from me being their parent, and if there's a benefit for me as a worker, then it trickles down. Now, that is a trickle down we can believe in. I think the second thing that it does is that it also helps us to define our district and the people in which provide the service. These are working mothers. I remember being very disappointed during the discussions around COVID where my members who are women were being ridiculed for making it harder for working mothers. And I just thought about how many mothers had Zoom around the table, their class and their children's class at the same time. And so what we get to do in this moment is also make sure that you understand who our members are. They are women you live next door to, whose children you have play dates with, who are trying to make the best out of a bad situation all the time. And that means something. I'll end with this. Our paraprofessionals, who we don't often lift up in this way, those women are not just women. They are women who live in North Lawndale, who live in Roseland, who live in Inglewood. They are black women. They are brown women who reside in Pilsen and Little Village. It is important for us to center the fact that paraprofessionals should not have to apply for aid as working mothers in order to sustain their families. And so this goes a long way in helping us become a district that leads on what it offers working mothers.
And then for CEO Martinez, this might be a dumb question, but is this applicable at all to any of the city's charter schools?
So this would be, so we definitely will encourage also our charter schools to apply this. So we will always do a policy first that is the managed schools, which is about 515 out of 633 schools. But then right after that, we start working with our charter partners as well. And then we will, as we work at renewals, again, we try to encourage as much as possible parity, especially around benefits.
And AD, what I'll say to your question. Sorry. Thank you. Charters is interesting. We just settled a monumental contract with the Acero where our workers were able to get 7 weeks. And so when it's at the negotiating table, it gets crowded out by other things. And that is why I know it shouldn't be at the negotiating table. We shouldn't be trading parental leave for class size or class size for parental leave. That's not a negotiation. It's a necessary reality for both things. And so, yes, it is being negotiated at the places where we have members. And, I would say 7 weeks is nothing to sneeze at a place that did not have anything previously.
So we're off-topic questions now, right?
Sure.
So I understand there's at least 3 off-topic questions. All right.
So my question was about the Inspector General's report finding that there are at least somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 officers who have been documented to have submitted false reports. How difficult does that make your task in restoring Chicagoans' trust in the police department, and what do you plan to do about it?
Well, as you all know, I'm committed to constitutional policing. And I'm also committed to making sure that we have leadership within our police department that engenders confidence in our rank and file members, trust, and accountability. And I think everyone in this room knows what I have inherited, and I don't shy away from the responsibility. And it's going to require a collaborative approach with law enforcement, with advocates, of course my administration, to make sure that police officers are living up to their full responsibility of serving and protecting in an honorable way. Now, whether or not this makes my job hard or not, that's to be debated still.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
In a program that predates you, CDOT is giving away 5,000 bikes up until 2026. So in the first year that since this was announced, it's given away about 900 single-speed commuter bikes. As someone who has mentioned before that you bike regularly, I don't know if you're still biking regularly now.
I think you know the answer to that.
Do you support this program, and why is it important for Chicagoans, particularly those in high mobility hardship areas, to have access to bikes and helmets and locks and such?
Yeah, I appreciate that 7-part question. That's sharp. No, you're good. You're good. I appreciate it. Look, biking in the city of Chicago has to be accessible, available, and safe. And, everyone knows that once upon a time, I was a far more regular biker. My life has shifted a little bit, so we're working through that with my detail, who also will have to ride their bikes with me. So once we get that figured out and mapped out, I will be on the streets of Chicago riding my bike yet again. And as far as the value of this program, absolutely, I still support it. And moving it in an equitable way is really what we are committed to doing as well. Everyone knows what side of town I live on. If you don't know, the west side of Chicago and the south side of Chicago does not have enough secure bike lanes. There is an entire effort to make sure that our grid protection process is something that is equitable as well. So it's an exciting time for the people of Chicago. As you can tell, that there are more people who are moving through the city of Chicago. I know everyone is expecting me to fix the traffic proclivities in the city of Chicago as well, but with all the congestion and all of the activity and excitement that's coming to the city, having public transportation, which includes, of course, our bikes, is going to be critical to the future of our city. So not only do I support it, but I'm working hard to make sure that it's distributed in an equitable way. Thank you for that.
And we've got a quick follow-up off of that. You take South Chicago Avenue, right? So it's down to one lane of cars and a bike lane in each direction. And of course, a lot of motorists just take that bike lane and use it as a car lane. Is there anything, any thoughts about ways to deter that kind of behavior? Because not only do they take the bike lane, but they speed through the bike lane.
Yeah, the infrastructure in the city of Chicago obviously is antiquated and it needs to be modernized. And so I've talked repeatedly, and we're looking into this as well, bus-only lanes, traffic signals that provide preference for our buses so that transportation moves through quickly. Really as far as, how do we mitigate bad driving? If I can figure that out, I might be able to run for the world leader. I do not want to, frighten our conservatives out there. I'm not running to be the world leader. This is a really tough crowd, But seriously, it is a problem, and I take Chicago Avenue quite a bit, and there are too many individuals that do not adhere to the safety provisions that we put in place. So having far more identifiable lanes with protective gear will be an effort that I'm committed to developing and expanding. And some of the dynamics that are happening in places like Colombia, they're doing an amazing job. In places like Bogota, they have transformed their public transportation there in a very short time. So we are looking at the world as well of how we can lead in our country, how we protect lanes, but also ultimately protect people.
Yeah. Hi, Mayor.
Hey,
my
Justin.
question is for you.
Justin,
and
you hang out around here a lot. I just appreciate, though, by the way. I'll
I'm always
come out and
lurking.
I'll
I'm
just
always
see
ready
Justin
to.
just right around the corner. I
Yeah,
appreciate
always
it.
ready to walk right up to you and ask you questions. So my question is for you and for Stacy. So we reported yesterday that the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund is considering an investment from Sterling Bay on their Lincoln Yards project. I guess my question is, should the pension fund consider the CTU's past opposition to that project, and or your apparent support for the project now that you're mayor, you're not going to try to undo the project and your support of it going forward? Should they consider those like political realities, or should they just consider the dollars and cents of the deal?
Well, let's start with my apparent support for Sterling Bay. Is that what you are referring to?
Yeah, and Lincoln Yards specifically.
And Lincoln Yards specifically. Well, here's what I support. I support development, and I support opportunities for the people of Chicago to benefit from that development. Now, I've had conversations with a lot of corporate leaders and businesses, and there is still more conversations to be had before you will hear emphatically from me about how I feel about any project or development in the city of Chicago. As far as the decision of the Chicago Teachers Union's pension fund or what the CTU should do, I'm only in charge of the city of Chicago. So I think it's probably more appropriate for the Chicago Teachers Union to answer that. Okay. Stacy?
You got me, Justin. Look, I'm trying to act right. You know, we're on the 5th floor. I am trying to be my best version of Stacy, and you are not allowing that. I'm amazed that this is a headline, honestly. The story is not that they're pitching to investors. I think the story is, why are they pitching to investors at this late point in the development of that space? And so I've spent time trying to understand that. And so I'm waiting on those stories so I can understand why they're pitching teachers and not JP Morgan or Lone Star.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate you all.